Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of The Stare Down, The 4 C's. I'm Mallory McCormack, your host. So if you're ready, you know the drill. It's time to sit back, relax, grab a drink or two, and listen to The Stare Down. So I've got a lot of great content for you today. I hope you agree. Before we get started, though, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is listening. The first 4 episodes and the trailer, as of this week, hit a total of over 1,000 downloads, and that just blows my mind. So thank you so much for the support. I really, really appreciate it. I hope I continue to put out content that you like and that you keep listening and sharing with all of your friends and family. So today's episode is the 4 C's, and our first C is going to be controversy, because we all know we could not have finished the Women's World Cup without some kind of controversy, right? Well, here we are. So Spain won. Good for them. Interesting celebration by their RFEF president. So basically the Spanish Football Federation. The president's name is Luis Rubiales. And when one of the players came forward to get her medal, funnily enough, she is a forward, and her name is Jenny Hermoso, he grabbed her and kissed her on the lips. Probably a little bit of an inappropriate celebration. So Jenny comes out, states, yeah, made me uncomfortable. I wasn't real cool with it. Should be the end of the story, right? If nothing else, Rubiales should apologize, should make a very public apology, should probably be disciplined in some way by the Spanish Federation, just for the inappropriate conduct. So reports start coming out on Thursday that he's actually going to step down on Friday. Great. Phenomenal. He's going to own up to his actions. Maybe he's going to give her an apology. We're not sure, but this is what comes out. So everybody goes to bed on Thursday thinking this is the end of it. Yeah, not so much. Don't know what got into Mr. Rubiales, but according to his very dramatic and fiery speech today, he is not going to resign. In fact, he said that the kiss was consensual. You'll have to go to ESPN and check it out. I'm sure you can find it, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever videos can be watched. But his speech was awkward at best. I'm being nice. It was just awkward and very, very cringeworthy. So he accuses her of basically consenting to this, and immediately through her union rep, she sends out a response that says, no, it was not consensual. I do not agree to this happening. I did not agree to this happening. It's made me very uncomfortable. Oh, and by the way, here are the signatures from me and all of my teammates and 58 other former players for the national team. And not only was it not appropriate what he did, and did I not consent to that, but also until he's removed from his position, none of us are going to be playing for the national team. So now somebody somewhere's got to step up and do something, because the Olympics are next year. So you either create a whole new squad that are willing to play with him as the head of the federation, or you get rid of him. In Spain, I got one correct answer for you. There is only one. It is to remove him. It is never appropriate for anyone to kiss anyone against their will. Do not then try and turn it and say that it was, if it was not. There are enough cameras and other audio visual aids in the world these days that we can tell if it was consensual or not. And I'm pretty sure the shocked look on her face told all of us it was not. Now, did she slap him at the end of it? No. I'm probably sure he would have liked that, but good for her, all of her teammates and players for supporting her and saying, nah, we're not cool with this. So I want to watch this one play out. Obviously, we'll probably talk about it as we see what the official response is. But like I said, Spain, there's only one correct response. So here's hoping that you take the bait, unlike Mr. Rubiales. Our second C of the week is court, as in court case, as in the one that Reggie Bush is going to file against the NCAA. And let me tell you, my little happy NCAA hating heart was so excited to hear this. I am very proud of Reggie for finally standing up and saying, look, you all claiming that I did this and were involved in a pay-for-play situation and dragging family members into it. It's not cool. It's tarnished my name, and I'm ready to sue you for the fact that you tarnished my name. And I think the timing of this is also very interesting, especially as you do have the Untold series coming out. You know, the episode about Johnny Manziel this week, the Swamp Kings came out. And so that one, I think the timing of that is very, it's very on point, and it's very calculated, which could be another C word for this week. But it's a good calculation on his part, because the Heisman organization stated that they would not be giving back his Heisman Trophy unless the NCAA reinstated all of his records that they wiped away. And the NCAA still has the ability to reinstate them, but obviously my favorite, Mark Emmert, said in 2021 that the NCAA would not be reinstating his records, and that basically tough shit. Even though it's now legal to do what they accused him of doing, just tough. Hate it for you. But then Johnny Manziel can come out in his Untold episode and state that he had the fourth string quarterback taking his P tests for him so that the drugs would not show up in a drug test, so he could still play. He could still be eligible to play. I think to me where the difference in this lies is that drug testing is still something that the NCAA does, and players can still be suspended if they test positive for drugs. But yet you can be paid the same way they're accusing Reggie Bush of being paid, and that's now legal, but yet what he did wasn't. It's just another hypocritical stance that the NCAA has tried to take. I personally don't think it's one that they should fall on their sword for. I think reinstate his records, give him his Heisman back. I think that's the only logical answer at this point. You know, I've always had the feeling that anytime you punish a team or a player by wiping out their records or taking away their wins, it doesn't really do a whole lot. At least in the eye of the public, like, haha, okay, well, you know, Alabama may have beaten Ole Miss 70-0, but if they get that win wiped away, then we won. Y'all know we didn't. No, we didn't. We know who won those games. We know who holds those records. We know that Reggie Bush ran for all of those yards and absolutely deserved that Heisman that year. So I think this is a really good thing for Reggie. I hope it will finally bring some peace to him. Personally, I'm sure it's not easy for him to deal with this. And it's also not really fair that every time we mention Reggie Bush, you get that whole story brought up. Oh, well, he was the Heisman winner, then he had it taken away. But yet Pete Carroll, the coach who all of this happened under, he just got to go to the NFL and go coach there and have a great career, and is still having a decent career at this point. It's maybe not as good as it was in the early days, but no one mentions every time they mention his name that USC was put on probation. So I'm glad to see that Reggie's finally taking a stand. I'm glad to see that he's hopefully going to force the NCAA to pay him. I find all of the irony and wonderfulness in that. And so, another thing we're going to be watching and that I'm sure we will have brought up as we move forward. The third C for this week is going to be corny and cheesy and all of the other awful words that start with C that I can think of when it comes to the Swamp Kings. There were so many like missed opportunities in this Untold series. And if you haven't watched it yet, it is out on Netflix as of this week. It's actually 4 episodes. They're about 45 minutes each. I'm glad they didn't just try and cram all of that into one, because it definitely deserved 4, if not more episodes. But y'all, they left out Aaron Hernandez. They left out Cam Newton stealing the laptop. They left out the Chauncey twins. They left out the heart attack and the 911 call by Urban Meyer's wife. They left out all of the really juicy stuff. But what they didn't leave out were the narratives that Urban Meyer could control. The fact that there were some players that maybe didn't get along with him, and yet they stepped up to become leaders. The fact that there was a player who didn't know his mom and dad, and then would come to Urban's house every week where his wife would make him spaghetti, which was his favorite meal. And he got to bond with his son, and he didn't ever celebrate birthdays. And Urban had this epiphany of, oh man, I've never thought of what life could actually be like on the other side of the tracks for these kids that I'm recruiting. It was just kind of gross. And I really wanted to like it. I really did. But honestly, I didn't. And to make matters worse, and the cherry on top of it all for me, was the weird whispery voice that Tim Tebow had. It was almost like in those movies where you have like the voice of God coming down, and he may be whispering something in your ear, and he gets a little soft when he talks, and he just kind of goes slow. That's what Tebow had. And it was not dramatic. It was flat out creepy. So cheesy, corny, creepy, could have been so much better. Those are all of my C words for the Swamp Kings. Go check it out, though. I definitely want to get people's takes on it. Maybe there's something different than mine or something different from my take that you saw that you really did like, or something else that you want to point out. But let me know. As always, at the end of the episode, I'll give you all the ways where you can contact me and let me know these things. But finally, without too much of further ado, I want to give you my 4th C of the week, and that is community. And my community is the Ole Miss community, and there is something really great happening there that I have some guests, Blair and Maddie from the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation, and Karen, who is also a donor, just like myself. And we talk about this wonderful new program that they have started that gives back specifically to women's athletics and capital campaign, basically, for their facilities and supporting those sports and those student athletes. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have Blair, Maddie, and Karen. So hang tight. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Right now, we have Karen Hinton, Blair Griffith, and Maddie Summer. And we are here to talk about a new initiative that Ole Miss Athletics has called eMpower. So Blair, Maddie, since you are the two out on the ground running around raising money for it, why don't you give us a little background on what it is and kind of what Ole Miss Athletics is trying to do?
Sure. First off, thanks for having us on, Mallory and Karen. As always, it's great to connect back with you again. We're really excited about this new initiative, and excited to share a little bit more about it with folks. So, kind of the genesis of it. And Maddie, feel free to jump in. I think going back when Maddie and I first started here in spring of 2022. As we kind of got acclimated in our roles, going out and seeing some of our athletic supporters and donors and people that are engaged with our programs. Something that consistently felt like it kept coming up in conversation, at least for the two of us, was maybe this lack of intentionality in supporting our female and women's athletic programs here on campus. And I know, Karen, we've had various dialogue about this prior to you joining eMpower, just about how we maybe lack in some areas in trying to support and uplift those programs. So really, initially, the idea sparked from us having conversations with people that love and care about Ole Miss, trying to find ways for us to improve. And I don't know if it was divine intervention, but it must have been maybe just a couple months afterwards. Our boss, Matt McLaughlin, our chief development officer, kind of came to us with an idea. He said, "Hey, been thinking about this. If we can find a way to incorporate some type of women's giving initiative here at Ole Miss, we should try to capitalize on that opportunity." So he tasked myself and Maddie, and actually another team member on our staff, Javon Patterson, who's done an incredible job engaging our former student athletes here at Ole Miss. He tasked the three of us with doing some outreach and connecting with other schools and figuring out how something like a female women's giving initiative could be incorporated into some of the things that we're doing here at Ole Miss. So really, it was about a 6 to 7 month process of us doing various forms of outreach and trying to figure out really just best practices, what's been successful for other institutions that have done stuff similar to this, and figuring out how it kind of incorporates into our Vought Society structure and model, how it doesn't overlap with our individual sport-specific giving. In terms of just figuring out the logistics of it, it was a long process, a lot of hard work and diligent work by our staff, and we figured out a way for us to maybe capitalize just within our current model on the philanthropic giving side. But also, I'll just add to that, and this is something that Maddie and I talk about quite often, but as outsiders, the state of Mississippi just coming in and really trying to embrace Ole Miss, we, I think, recognized an opportunity for us to maybe have a more holistic and broader impact, not only just here in Oxford at Ole Miss within the state of Mississippi, but really in the Southeastern Conference here in the SEC. And then, of course, trying to send a broader message across the country, too, that we care about our female student athletes. They're truly remarkable here at Ole Miss. And if we can find a way to uplift them and kind of spread a message of equity and support to our SEC peers, but also our other national peers across the country, we thought that we should try to capitalize on that as well. And also we joke about this sometimes too. When you look historically at Ole Miss and the success of our athletic programs, within at least recent years, it's really our women's programs that have been, by and large, the more successful ones, so to speak. You talk about 2021, our women's golf program winning a national championship. I think the last 3 to 4 years, our women's rifle program has placed top 3 or 4 for the last 3 or 4 years. Of course, the success that Coach Yo has had with our women's basketball program, and we have a long history of success with our women's track and field program as well. So just to name a few, we've noticed that our women's athletic programs are really prominent and are successful on a yearly basis. So just trying to find ways to allow people to recognize that, allow them to have an avenue to invest in the future success of those programs, really, but holistically, just to uplift women's athletics, supporting our women for years to come. So that was kind of the genesis of it. I know that was a lot, but
I was gonna say, you've only talked about this a couple of times,
right,
every single day for the past year, probably. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah. And of course, I will just add one last thing, and then I'll stop talking. Having conversations with folks like Karen, who are passionate about our women's programs. Obviously, you were a former basketball player here at Ole Miss, but you've embodied just philanthropic support for our women across the state. Having people like that in our corner to help us push this thing over the finish line was truly impactful too. So we've had a lot of help along the way. Had support from our staff within the foundation, and of course our senior leadership with Keith Carter, Alan Green, Jen Saxon. They were all really influential in making this thing happen. So
Yeah, awesome. So, Karen, I know Blair and I've talked before, and he, told me you're a former basketball player. You're from the state of Mississippi. I'm actually currently reading your memoir, and it's fascinating. But I just want to ask you, kind of what was the draw to join this movement outside of the obvious, outside of the fact that it is supporting, women's sports within Ole Miss? Was it something of, hey, it's time we can put the state of Mississippi and our women's athletics programs on the front of the national stage, or was it something completely different?
I am and have been a basketball player, and I love women's basketball today. But any athletic program, any sports program is so important to girls and young women. And maybe they get on a college team, maybe they don't, but it ultimately doesn't matter. What matters is that there is a place for them at as many colleges as possible. And by the way, that's what a federal law called Title IX requires.
Yes.
And I am of the belief that we are not completely enforcing Title IX, not just at Ole Miss, but in colleges across the country, South, North, East, and West. We need to do more to support women in colleges, and as well as support the girls and young women growing up in high school and junior high. Athletics means so much. It's certainly great for your health, but it's also great for your mental health, as well as your sense of learning about competition and cooperation. Those two C words are so important, I think, for girls, because as they grow up and as they decide what they want to be, what they want to study going into college, and then what they want to be after college, athletics can play a huge, huge role in that. And it definitely had that impact on me growing up in South Mississippi, because I played basketball from the time I was in the 6th grade until I graduated. And yes, I got to play on the Lady Rebels, but I was not as good as the other players. I want to admit that and be very honest. I played for a year. I tried my best, but I didn't get to play as much as I wanted to play. And I understood that. Peggy Gilliam was on my team, and that was her first year. And, she later went on to be a coach at Texas A&M and at Ole Miss. And she's now the chaplain at Ole Miss. And, she has done so much for women's basketball over the years. And she was an inspiration for me, even though I could never out-jump her, out-shoot her, or out-rebound her. She was an inspiration for me because she made me learn how to compete and to cooperate. She wasn't a nasty basketball player. She was really empathetic to everyone on the team. And that was important for me to learn as a young woman. Because when we go to work, we have to learn how to compete for sure, to get those promotions, to get those raises. God knows the salary equities are not what they should be. So we need to know how to compete. We also need to know how to cooperate and make the work environment much less toxic than it has been. And that is one topic that I deal with in my book, is how we've had to deal with toxic work environments as well as toxic school environments. And that we need to learn how to correct those environments. And women can help do that, as well as men, of course.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of why I decided to talk to Blair about this and pick his brain about how I could be helpful. And I'm so glad Blair invited me to be part of this. So here I am.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I think you kind of hit on it. I'm going to add another C in there for you that I think is so important. And I think I see it in the work that Maddie and Blair have done. Blair talked about how neither one of them are native Mississippians like you and I are, but there's a community here, and that's a community. If you've ever been to Ole Miss, you understand. And I'm sure it's like that at, other colleges as well. They have their community. And so, Maddie, I think for me, one of the questions for you would be, what do you see in the community at Ole Miss, and specifically with our women's sports programs, and how easy is that for you to sell and to get people to buy into it?
I mean, honestly, for me, Ole Miss has really just become one big family. I mean, as soon as you move down here, whether it's getting the groceries, running through the drive-through, people are stopping you. As soon as they hear my voice, they know I'm not from here. And so that kind of starts the conversation that way. But it really just has been one big family, whether it's at the foundation with our coworkers or in the athletic department in total, working with academics. People are just so kind. They really care. And you can see that in how they treat and how they love our student athletes and all of our athletic programs. I think it's really easy for people to fall in love with the big ones, the ones you see plastered all over the televisions, the ones where you're driving on campus and you see the massive football stadium. People recognize that, people fall in love with that aspect of things. And I think for too long, it's been kind of hard to kind of get the female athletic programs in people's eyes for them to fall in love with. But as soon as we do it, it's like they don't ever want to turn back. I've had the chance to work closely with our volleyball program and getting them a new Terraflex court. And we have a few donors that I've been able to bring around them, ones that have never been around the volleyball program before. And overall, just stemming from our head coach, Bree Henry, all the way down to the players, each of them introducing themselves, making it a point to show love. People have just fallen in love with this volleyball team. You can see people absolutely have fallen in love with women's basketball. We've had the chance to sit down with Rifle and attend one of their practices, and they're just all phenomenal human beings that just haven't been able to kind of showcase themselves in the spotlight. But as soon as we give them the chance, people just fall in love with them. And I think that's one of the big things that we're really trying to do here with Empower, is just giving every female student athlete the chance to get in the spotlight. And we're just doing our best to kind of work the way that we're set up here with our foundation and our programs to kind of help them get into that spotlight.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up volleyball. I mean, obviously, women's basketball, Coach O, everybody's heard I was just a girl with a dream and $1. And I feel like, Maddie and Karen, sorry, Blair, you're probably excluded from this one, but there have been times in our lives where it's very much like you feel like you've just had to kind of fight against everything, but you had that dream that was still kind of driving you, whether it was making a high school sports team or the women's basketball team at Ole Miss. But my husband and I went to go check out a volleyball game last year, and Blair, you'll probably have to laugh at this because my husband is like he's not anti-sports. He'll tell you he doesn't like sports, but that man has apparently found a new love for women's basketball and women's volleyball. And it's all because of the teams at Ole Miss. Yep. And so, yeah, you're right. The energy that those athletes bring and the coaches and the support staff, it's such a cool experience to sit there and watch them and watch the energy around all of them. And I love the trying to promote them, that you said, give them that spotlight. This is kind of, my big thing, that I don't feel like women get as many opportunities as the big sports, as the footballs, the baseballs, even men's basketball, but some of those girls, I'm pretty sure some of those guys don't want to go up against them and play them. Blair, if you're willing to take on Maddie Scott one-on-one, I'm sure we could make some kind of some kind of fundraising opportunity out of that. But if you also don't want to, I understand that as well, because she's phenomenal.
That would be a show for people. I wouldn't score a single point. I know that for a fact. So yes.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I love the fact that you said that, Maddie, too, that it is a family and bringing that family to the forefront. So, what are some of the hurdles that you guys have hit in pushing Empower? And also, I'm going to throw the gauntlet out. Are there any other SEC schools that have any kind of female specific fundraising like this?
So I think when we were kind of going through this and picking the brains of our counterparts at different schools, we kept running into the same thing. And that was that our foundation and our sport specific giving is just set up differently than everywhere else.
Okay.
You look at a school like Oregon, or even we were looking at North Carolina, Indiana. Those are schools that house everything in their foundation. So whether it's the volleyball ACE club or the women's basketball full court club, the foundation is handling that. And here at Ole Miss, our sports house their own sport specific giving if they have it. And so I think the big thing for us was, how can we have this be impactful and good for our sport programs, but also we don't want to be stepping on their toes. We want them to be able to have their full court club members, their ACE club members, so on and so forth. And we want them to be able to engage those donors, but we still wanted to kind of be impactful. And we kind of saw that at the major giving level to kind of make it work for how our foundation is. And that kind of led to, because of why we're set up so differently, just kind of led to us being the first in the SEC to have a women's giving initiative that is major gift and building facilities specific. So that was really cool, to kind of learn and see. And it was just honestly really, really lucky that we were able to kind of take how we're set up here and kind of impact it in the way that we are.
Nice.
And the other C word that we need to mention, and we're getting there, is cash.
Yes.
Cash is the other C word. So we have 4 now.
Yeah.
Because cash is really vital. Raising money for all of these sports programs at Ole Miss is key. And so all those people who are giving money to football, terrific, great, keep giving. But dig a little deeper and find money for women's sports. That's going to be so important. I watched the Lady Rebels go from having no one in the stadium watching them play to having a packed stadium when they played against South Carolina and came so close to beating them this past year.
Yes, we took them to overtime. And we were actually on vacation. So my husband and I bought season tickets for the Lady Rebels now. And I was so sad because we were flying out to a pre-planned vacation. But it was so fun to be able to, once we landed, we were in Mexico, and be able to pull up ESPN and actually watch the game. And I mean, I was cheering just as wildly as I would have been there. So I'm pretty sure they heard me back in Oxford, because I can be a little loud. But you're right, though, Karen. I mean, we are putting ourselves out there, and it's time that we have the facilities and do the upgrades. I mean, obviously, I don't think your softball stadium is probably ever going to be as big as your baseball stadium, but that doesn't mean it can't be just as nice and be just as comfortable. And the locker rooms and the weight rooms provide, the newest technologies. I think that's really all we're asking for, is let's just have that kind of level playing field.
Right. Mm-hmm. And just to piggyback, I think that's something that makes this initiative so unique, and why it's been so easy for us to get people to buy into it is, and Maddie alluded to it, we're the first. We know for a fact we're the first in the SEC to have a women's giving initiative tailored specifically to capital projects, facility enhancements, those aesthetic upgrades and things like that. And we haven't done quite a broad spectrum of research just across the country, but we're pretty confident we're one of the first, if not the first in the country, to have it tailored the way that we do and have it fit kind of within our Vaught Society umbrella. But again, it's providing us a little bit of prominence in the sense that we're doing something different. We're trying to find revenue opportunities that are unique, and we're taking advantage of an opportunity to lift a whole demographic of student athletes in just a really unique way that no one else has been able to do it before. And it's kind of cool now seeing it full circle, as we were planning to reach out to other schools and pick their brains a little bit and see what's worked well for them. A lot of that did tie into some of our structure, but it's fun now to hear peers from other schools reach out to us and figure out what we're doing so well. We want to try to, mimic what you guys are doing with Empower and, on the major giving level and things like that. So it's just been a really cool thing to see it come full circle. Now we have our peers reaching out to us, trying to mimic what we're doing because it's been so impactful and we've had such an incredible investment in it so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many charter members do you have?
So to date, actually, we just got our 25th officially today.
Yes.
One of our co-workers in the office, Catherine, brought in our 25th member today. And we are nearing, Maddie might know the exact number, but we're nearing $1 million in pledge commitments towards this Empower
Wow,
giving
terrific.
initiative. So, we're through the roof about that. It's been more successful, I think, in the short term than we thought it would be, at least initially. And it's just continuing to gain momentum. So we're excited about the future of it. But 25 members, only just a couple months in, that want to support this initiative. That's been incredible for us. And I know keep this through the roof about that too.
And when girls watch women's sports, when they watch the college programs, that it inspires them to go out and play harder or to go out and try a new sport. And that's what we need to say to alumni and to people who want to support women's athletics. It's going to help your girls, your daughters. So go out there and invest in these programs, make them work, make them better, to inspire these girls to get out there and do it themselves, because it will help them ultimately as they grow up.
Yeah, that's, I think that's a great point, Karen. One of the things that I love living in the state of Alabama is people here don't know a whole lot about Ole Miss besides the, Katy Perry and the Grove on game day, the first time we ever hosted it. And they know the normal stories, but just having people watching Coach Yo, and watching our women's basketball team last year in the NCAA tournament and working too in kind of a military town, getting to tell people, hey, we have a rifle program, and watching some of the faces of these guys who went to, the Naval Academy and the Air Force Academy and that stuff. They're like, wait, y'all have a rifle program too? We thought that was only military academies that had that. And like, no. And in fact, we beat Army last year. So we're pretty good. Like, maybe it's the hunting growing up. I don't know. I personally never hunted, and I'm pretty sure nobody wants me on their rifle team. But, we have that stuff. But then we've also got a phenomenal coach and our track coach. Our head track coach is the track coach for both men and women. And I think the last I heard, she was one of 5 in the nation, being a female over both men and women's programs. So, I think a lot of people look at Mississippi and think we're a little backwards, but I love the fact that we now have Empower and this whole platform to be able to tell those stories like that and be like, no, not only are we not backwards, we're actually leading the way in a lot of this stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Karen, I'm also, or my husband and my mom and I are also Empower members. So I'm very glad to get to talk to you and share that love for Ole Miss women's sports. So thank you so much. We've only got a few more minutes left, but I want to end it on kind of a fun note. So if you've checked out the podcast, I asked my guest what their walkout song would be if they could pick. So I'll go with ladies first. Karen, what would your walkout song be if you could pick one?
Oh dear, I should have given this more thought, and I haven't. My walkout song.
And take your time, because we haven't given it any thought either. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of like the spontaneity of it, though.
Okay, let me think. Oh shoot. Okay, somebody else go, and then I'll come back.
Oh gosh. You put us on the spot big time.
I know.
I feel like Blair has probably thought about this. So Blair, what would yours be?
I can't pinpoint a specific. I know my artist. I know my artist is for sure, and people will roll their eyes at this if they hear this, but it's something by Drake.
Okay.
Drake gets me going.
Okay. I mean, I like that though, because I kind of like just having a general artist, because depending on the day, your song could change. So I will take that as an acceptable answer.
I'm off the hook.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Maddie?
Okay, so I've actually never thought about this before. But I will tell you one thing. I can never listen to Desperado by Rihanna the same ever again after it was Justin Bench's walkout song, because every time I could have not even been at the baseball game and I heard it and I was like, Justin Bench, like immediately. And I kind of would love if people thought about that song in regards to me. So I think I'm gonna steal it from him, and I would do Desperado.
Okay. My mom, that was probably her favorite walkout song when JB was here. And she every time we get in the car now to go to Oxford, she's like, put on that Desperate song. But I know what she's talking about, so we have to listen to it. So I like that.
Okay, I've got my walkout song.
Okay.
And it's in my book, so I don't know why it just didn't come to me immediately. But this was my favorite song growing up with my high school girlfriends, and it was called Crystal Blue Persuasion. And it's a 60s song, and it was by the Tommy James and the Chantels. And there are lyrics in it where they sing, "Now don't you give up now." And that should be my walkout song for any girl in junior high, elementary school right now, thinking about playing a sport and fearing that they won't be good at it. Just don't you give up now. So that's my walkout song.
Awesome. I love that.
That's awesome. Mine is Nonstop by Drake. I figured out a specific song. It's Nonstop by Drake.
Okay. All right. Blair, I'm going to pick on you a little bit here, because of course they say it's women who can never make up our mind, but y'all, let's be honest, we had to go around a couple of times before Blair.
We just needed a few seconds. That's all.
The tables have turned, haven't they?
Hey, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Well, I feel like just because of the song title, I have picked out actually 2 songs for Empower to have as their walkout songs. One is Mississippi Queen, but it just needs to be called Mississippi Queens, because that's what every single one of our female student athletes are. They are queens in their own right. And then obviously, anything by Beyonce that just gets them pumped up. I feel like we can go somewhere along those lines.
Yeah. Terrific.
Most definitely.
Yes. Well,
I do want to just say one more thing.
Yeah.
I want to personally thank the two of you. I've had the pleasure to get to know each of you so well over the last year or so. And, in terms of this, we're talking about this initiative and what it means from a really holistic viewpoint. The success that we're able to have here at Ole Miss, and the success that our women's programs and coaches are able to have, isn't possible without the two of you. So I just want to thank you both for investing in this initiative and supporting our female programs. It's really been transformational for us. So we appreciate it. On behalf of Ole Math, on behalf of Ole Miss, we appreciate your guys' investment and support.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you, Blair. I love being involved, and I love seeing you get all these other people involved and raising all this money. That's terrific.
Yeah. And to that point, Blair and Maddie, I'm so glad both of you are still hanging out at OMath and are here and have, put your heads together and not just gone with the status quo. You saw something, you came in and you bought into it. And when people from the outside buy into it, it makes those of us who are intimately connected to it, it makes it so much easier for us to be able to buy into it. So thank you both for your hard work and doing this and doing the hard work and asking for money. I could not do that. So hats off to both of y'all for that. So
it's not for everyone.
Y'all make it fun, make it easy. So we appreciate
I like it. I like it. Well, thank y'all so much for joining me today. If you're listening, I will link more info about Empower and links to all of our walkout songs to the blog post that goes along with this. So check it out and hang tight, and we'll wrap up the show just right after this. Thank you so much to Blair, Maddie, and Karen for joining me. I hope that you all enjoyed it, especially
all of the walkout songs. We will list those in our blog post. I want everybody to check it out because I think those were some good choices. And I like how I feel like all of their personalities came out in that. So yeah, head over to thealabamaTake.com and check out the blog post that goes along with this episode. I had an idea given to me by one of my biggest supporters and a great friend, Earl Watts. This is your shout out. I told you I was going to, and I'm absolutely giving you the credit for this. Earl had the suggestion that we add a segment in and it include listener questions or comments or feedback. And he had the best name for it. So the Stare Down presents Don't Flinch. So this week's Don't Flinch is one that I love to break out at parties because one, it just shows you how insane my brain is and where I can, and that I store all of this crazy info. But two, I think it shows you just how small the world of athletics can be and how irony and coincidence can play a good part in it. So we'll go back to a topic from last week's episode, The Blind Side. And I'm not talking the court case this time. I'm talking the actual movie. During one of the main scenes, when all of these college coaches get the film of Michael Oher, they're sitting back and watching it. And in one scene, there's a guy by the name of Houston Nutt, who at the time that this was supposed to be happening, Houston Nutt was the head coach of Arkansas. Well, behind him in the movie is a guy by the name of Hugh Freeze, who in real life was the real Michael Oher's high school football coach. So coincidence that, yeah, they're standing there together because Hugh Freeze ends up being the next head coach at Ole Miss after Houston Nutt is fired. Fast forward a few years, and Hugh Freeze is basically forced out at Ole Miss due to the morality clause and dialing escorts on his state-issued cell phone. But those phone calls are discovered by a lawsuit brought against him and others, filed by none other than Houston Nutt. So if you ever want to know how small the athletics world really is and how maybe being a good person and not poo-pooing on somebody else or throwing somebody else under the bus is a good idea, just don't do it, guys, because that kind of stuff will come back and bite you. But if you do go check out The Blind Side, just remember, don't flinch during the scene when Houston Nutt is watching film of Michael Oher. That's all I've got for you today. So if you want to be on next week's episode in the Don't Flinch segment, you can always find us on Twitter at The Stare Down Pod, on Instagram at The Stare Down _podcast, on Facebook at The Stare Down, or you can email us at thestaredownpod@gmail.com. Also check out the Alabama Take, check out our blog post, check out the other ones. And until then, remember, it's time to sit back, relax, grab a drink or two, and listen to The Stare Down.